Hello and welcome to today's grand incident. Mega Man, known as Rockman in Japan, is Capcom's beloved action platformer, known by many for its style of gameplay and no punches pulled difficulty. A series that spans 30 years' time with many spin-offs that continue to thrive to this day. Despite its long history, there exists quite a gap between the 8th and 9th games released in the main series, and within that gap is where you'll find fan games returning to the classic style that Capcom itself had at the time seemingly left behind. It's no surprise that Touhou found its way into that trend, but would you be surprised to know that it's been more than a one-time thing? That's what I wanted to talk about today, what in my opinion is the lesser known of these classic style fan games. The game known as Touhou Rock Maiden, Houraisan Kaguya no Yabou. The game was released May 26, 2013 by Doujin Circle Capricorn, and is a Mega Man style game starring Hakurei Reimu as the protagonist and Houraisan Kaguya as the main antagonist. Just as you'd expect, the game consists of 8 bosses you have to defeat to gain access to the final stages where Dr. Wily, Kaguya, await. Defeating bosses grants you their special abilities, and saving and continuing is done by a password system. Immediately you'll notice that the game isn't translated, which is unfortunate, but it doesn't detract from the gameplay in any way, so I'm not too beat up over it. You start in a prologue stage, which isn't really much of anything, just a way to familiarize yourself with the main mechanics of jumping, shooting, and sliding, while also giving a taste of the platforming and getting knocked into a pit that is yet to come. Enemies drop mushrooms that restore health, blue gems that recover weapon energy, and Reimu's face, which are 1-ups. There are also blue and red potions that refill your health and energy that can be collected and stored, but you can only hold a max of 4 each and you won't find them in this stage. Getting to the end, Reimu runs into Kaguya, who is stealing her donation box. Not sure why she's taking an empty box, but if she was trying to provoke Reimu, then it certainly worked. Kaguya will leave and Tei Inaba, a yokai rabbit, will stay behind to fight. She hops around slamming her mallet. Just don't be on the ground when she does and you'll be able to finish her off quick. Now for the main game. You can start with any of the 8 bosses you want, so I'm starting with Konpaku Yomu, the half-phantom gardener. Let me explain why. Every boss has a weakness, but for at least one of them you have to deal with it with no abilities. Yomu takes additional damage from your standard shot, and her weakness is from the most annoying of the bosses to face. Another reason is because Yomu is the only stage of the 8 that doesn't have an extra item to find, so once you finish it you won't have to return to it. Most of these items require an ability to get, so backtracking is inevitable in a first playthrough. For that reason, I'm going to go through all the bosses first, then before moving on to Kaguya, I'll be revisiting the stages showing where the additional items are hidden and explaining what it is they do. Alright, time to begin. Yomu's stage is the easiest stage in the game. The theme is a traditional Japanese mansion and has very little in the way of pits and spikes. The main difficulty comes from the enemies, mostly one in particular. The green ghost, known as Tojiko, will fly towards you and fire 3 semi-aimed bullets, and you can only shoot her down before she fires with a charge shot. The main issue here is that the game has a really mean enemy respawn mechanic. Jumping backwards to avoid Tojiko's shot is almost guaranteed to make her respawn when you try to advance again, rendering your dodge worthless. There are more enemies that become terrible to deal with due to this, but as far as this stage is concerned, she's the only one. Nothing else of note, so let's move on to the boss. Even though I said Yomu takes more damage from your base shot, she is by no means easy. She jumps and slashes and zooms all around the room, and it's entirely up to her what she wants to do. You have to slide under her when she jumps towards you. Jumping over her won't work. She's so fast that sometimes you just explode. It's ridiculous. I eventually got a nice pattern and beat her, and boy am I glad I never have to do that again. Yomu gives you the ability Meisosan, which is just a sword slash. This weapon is incredibly strong but suffers from range, so it's only good against certain enemy types. I should mention that after every boss, either Marissa or Alice will tell you how the ability you just got works. I think. I'm not sure because I can't read it. Alright, time for the next one. That one being Hinanai Tenshi, a celestial. Tenshi's stage takes place above the clouds in heaven, and when you're so high up, it's expected that there's going to be a lot of pits to fall in. This is where you'll run into the fun known as one-tile platforming with oncoming enemies that will respawn if you so much as nudge a pixel away from them. The main difficulty from this stage comes from the collapsing bridge segments, where Tay squishers fall on you while you're trying to cross. Getting hit is almost a guaranteed death, and they only go down in one hit to a charge shot, so you have to have one ready at all times while crossing. If you can handle that, then you'll be able to reach the end in no time. Now for Tenshi. She always opens with a shot, then jumps around summoning keystones. Meisosan is her weakness, and slashing the keystone hanging around her immobilizes it for a bit. 4 slashes is all it takes to finish her off. Tenshi gives you the ability Kaname Funnel, which summons a ring of keystones around Reimu that she can fire. This weapon is fantastic against enemies with 1 HP, as they don't break any keystones when they get hit. Moving on to the next, we have Chirno, an ice fairy. Chirno's stage is a frozen cave with some waterfall backdrops. You also get your first taste of the ever-classic freefall down a tunnel of spikes. This stage also has ice physics, where taking even a single step moves you an entire block forward. This is awful because of how much of the stage is one-tile platforming and sliding. It also has some rather precise jumps on ice, on top of all the enemies that'll knock you into a pit. I wouldn't be surprised if you found this stage to be the worst in the game, but if you can survive it, then you'll be happy to know that the boss is nowhere near as bad. On to Cirno herself. She attacks with icicles and sliding, as well as an ice beam. Kaname Funnel is her weakness, and the best way to use it is to run into her then back off, as her invincibility will eat your extra stones. All you need is 5 hits to win. Cirno gives you the ability Icicle Fall, which causes icicles to fall from the top corner behind the direction Rainbow uses it. I'm not sure the best spots to use it since I dislike not being able to shoot while it's active. Boss number 4 will be Shamei Maru Aya, a Crow Tengu. This stage is up in the sky like Tenshi's, but not quite as high, but it somehow manages to have more pits. This stage has everything. Instant kill spikes, collapsing platforms, wind mechanics, and the worst level aspect in the entire game. I'm talking about these, the rail-bound platforms. They have forced jumping portions and enemies placed in such a way to knock you off of them before you can even tell what happened. They always start at the same position, moving away from you, and you have to wait the entire cycle to even attempt them. There is no way to speed this up. You just have to wait between 10 to 20 seconds every time. Even with all these incredibly frustrating elements in play, I still wouldn't call this one the worst in the game. But enough on that, let's get on with the boss. Aya uses tornadoes and sonic booms while flying around. She gets grounded by Icicle Fall and only takes 4 hits to drop. I think it's a nice touch that the Tengu character shares a weakness and a reaction to said weakness as Tengu Man from Mega Man 8 does. It's attention to detail like that that really shows how much the creator cares about what they're making. Aya gives you the ability Tengu Oroshi, which creates a tornado in front of you that you can use to gain height. This ability is pretty important for reaching items, but not so much for fighting. After your 4th boss, Marissa will give you the Magic Broom, which summons a moving platform for you to ride. Another ability needed for secrets, but it's pretty bad as a level skip. You can only use it if it lands on ground in front of you, and you can only use your normal shot. Changing your weapons makes the broom disappear. Starting off the back half will be Fujiwara no Moko, an immortal human. Moko's stage is a bamboo forest and is full of the rabbit enemies. Those enemies being the Tay turrets, Tay dozers, and the Tay pogos, or as I call them, Tainderizers. The spikes are sharp bamboo, which is a nice touch to fit the theme, even if there's an excessive amount of them. You get another Mega Man classic here with a long stretch of disappearing platforms over a bottomless pit. I'd say use the broom if you aren't confident, but I've died by having the broom crash into a platform that appeared in front of it, so I won't advise it. This stage is kinda long, but I'm not sure if that's because of how slow it wants you to move through it or not. And even though it's annoying to run through it again in the event of a death, it's not as frustrating as the last 2 stages. On to the boss. Moko shoots fireballs and can make herself invincible by setting herself on fire. Tengu Oroshi is her weakness, and you can catch her in an infinite with good timing to avoid her other attack completely. 6 spins and she's down for the count. Moko gives you the ability Imperishable Shooting, which is a ring of fire that has a slight delay on its launch and can be angled to a degree. I find it hard to use it because of the delay, so I only pull it out on the appropriate boss fights. Coming up next is Patchouli Knowledge, a witch. Her stage is a giant library that features those disappearing blocks, as well as the return of the rail-bound platforms. The difficulty of this stage is how incredibly spread out the checkpoints are, and the multiple platform sections you get to deal with between them. It also features the most annoying enemy in the game, the Lance Fairy. If she sees you, she charges at you at a ridiculous speed and is near impossible to shoot once she's in your face. Mei Sozan is the best option for dealing with this enemy. Getting through this incredible patience tester of a stage will let you vent your frustration on its boss. Patchouli attacks with magic bubbles that bounce around or are shot out at you. Her weakness is Imperishable Shooting, and when she gets hit by it, she flies backwards. With good timing, you can take her down before she returns to her starting position. All it takes is 5 hits to burst her bubble. Patchouli gives you the ability Mercury Poison, that lobs a bubble that rides the ground until it crashes. It's good for hitting things below you, but that doesn't happen much, so I don't use it. Lucky number 7 is Ryuji Utsuo, a Hell Raven. This stage is an underground cave like Cirno's, but full of lava instead of ice. The lava acts as spikes, so if you're hit into it, you'll have some invincibility to get away. The main enemy to look out for is the Bucket Girl, known as Kasume, that pops up over pits to block you and make you fall. An annoying enemy for sure, but not what you're going to be dying to the most here. Time for another Mega Man classic. Descending rooms full of lasers that require perfect movement to clear and knowledge of the room layout ahead of time to perform. No time stop cheese here. You have no choice but to trial and error until you get through. You can make the other parts of the stage a bit easier though, as Icicle Fall will permanently freeze any of the lava it touches until you clear the stage or game over. If you can survive that literal hell, you get to fight the Big Bird. First thing is that you can freeze the lava in the boss room. Utsuo shoots fireballs, exploding orbs, and pillars of fire. Her weakness is mercury poison, and will be grounded by it, but she always retaliates before her invincibility runs out. Hit her with 5 bubbles to cause a meltdown. Utsuo gives you the ability Nuclear Excursion, which creates an orb above your head that increases in size the longer you hold it and can be thrown forwards. This one drains energy, so I have never used it outside of a boss fight. Finishing off at number 8 is Remilia Scarlet, a vampire. This stage is a grand castle, full of dropping spike traps and spike pits. The traps aren't instant kills, but they do a lot of damage. This stage also has a lighting gimmick, where some portions are dark. You can light them up with imperishable shooting, but they aren't that obnoxious as you'd think, so it's not a necessity. There is a corridor full of lance fairies though, so if you were wondering where the obnoxious is, there you go. Actually, I lied. The real obnoxious portion of this stage is the boss. Remilia flies at the top of the room and swoops down to grab you. If she does, she heals while doing damage. She floats down after a while and fires embers, and sometimes chucks spears from above. Her weakness is Nuclear Excursion, but she only flinches if you have a decent charge, and hitting her out of the air tends to knock her into you. You barely have any energy to beat her with, so if you don't do it right, you have no juice to win, and I don't even want to think about doing this one without the weakness. 4 good hits is all you need to win, so good luck. Remilia gives you the ability Spear the Gungnir, which is a rapid fire type of shot. I don't know how good it is though, since I always get it last, and the items grant you an incredible shot type. Now that the 8 bosses are defeated, you can go to the Kaguya stages, but before that, the hidden items. Some of these require an ability to get, while others can be grabbed right away. I don't have any particular order for them, so let's just start from Patchouli. When you reach the second set of disappearing blocks, you can drop down and shoot the wall on the right side to open a slideway. Use Aya's ability to get up to the spot with the red potion, then use the broom to get over the wall on the right. Here you'll meet Shanghai, one of Alice's dolls. Shanghai will grab you if you fall into a pit and bring you back up. Easily the best ability in the game, but you only get 4 per stage, so it isn't as overpowered as it could be. In Remilia's stage, when you reach the spike trap that is basically impossible to avoid, you'll see a pit that's impossible to fall into. Drop the broom on the spikes and slide on it to fall into a secret room. Here you'll find the piercing enhancement, which as it sounds allows your shot to keep going if it takes out an enemy. For Chirno's stage, when you reach the spike fall, you want to get on the right to land on the cliffside. Get to the end of it and use Aya's ability to get up to where the potions are. Then use the broom to go left and jump around the center of the opening and hold up to hook a ladder. Climb up it to get the Persuasion Needles, a shot type that is narrower than your orbs, but fully charged they pierce every defense and are as strong as Meisozan. Aya's stage has the easiest item to get, but it's absolutely ridiculous to find. When you reach the first Suika, you want her to hit you into the spikes, and while you have invincibility, you want to slide to the right. You'll enter a room with the Koban in it. This item makes your shot charge almost instantly, and if you combine that with the needles, you get a real quick solution to shielded enemies. For Moko's stage, close to a checkpoint, you'll reach an area with a Tay turret and a 1-tile gap in the ceiling above some spikes. Use the broom or Aya to get into the gap to reveal a ladder. Climb up it to get the ceiling amulets. These are narrow like the needles, but a charge shot throws 5 outwards. Good range, but not amazing as a whole, especially compared to the needles. For Utsuo's stage, a bit before the laser descent, you'll pass by a large pool of lava that you're unlikely to fall in. Use Chirno's ability to freeze the lava and the stream will open. You'll need an ability that hits the ground below you. I use Tenshi's, and you'll fall into a room. To the left is bells that increase your invincibility frames when hit, and to the right is Nazarin, a mouse. Nazarin functions like a usable ability. Summoning her will have her dig up an item in front of her. It can be health, energy, or junk. Lastly, for Tenshi's stage, the area with the red fairies bobbing up and down has a platform that you have to go out of your way to reach. Use Aya to get up there and call Nazarin to have her find the charm, which increases the effect of healing items. I have no idea how you're supposed to find some of these items. Someone told me where the Koban was, but everything else I managed to find myself. I only checked that platform with Nazarin on a gut feeling. Not sure if anything in the game hints at it, but if it did then I couldn't read it. Funny enough, the first item I found was the one in Remilia's stage, the last stage I did. That's how I learned that any of these existed to begin with, so I spent a while backtracking through every stage to find them. Last thing to note about the items is the ones that grant additional effects have to be equipped from the menu. They aren't passive. You can only have one on at a time, so equip what you need when you need it. Now that everything has been collected, it's finally time to pursue Kaguya. Kaguya's home base is the mansion known as Aente, located deep in the bamboo forest, meaning the upcoming stages are a mix of those themes. The first stage is pretty tame. There's a lot of enemies, but not much in the way of pits, so you don't have to worry too much about instant deaths. I'm sure this stage is worse if you didn't get any items, but given how the next stages are, I don't want to think about coming here without additional help. I'm jumping the gun though. First you gotta take out the boss. Tay shows up in a mech suit. She shoots missiles, throws rocks, and chucks you into the ceiling. Her weakness is Meiso-san, but the mech doesn't take damage itself, so you have to jump slash to hit her. 6 slashes and you'll take her out. Now for the absolute worst stage in the game. Starting right away, you get a massive stretch of spikes. The only way to get across is the broom. It takes the entire energy bar to make it, and if you die before the checkpoint, which is decently far in, you get to go back to the start with no broom. You get 2 large energy recharges, which is only half your bar, so you're stuck farming the enemies close by. It is so much faster to just force a game over. Shortly after the checkpoint, you get another spike free fall, but this one is longer and harder to clear. As soon as you get through that, you have a rail-bound platform segment to complete. To end it all, you have a big pit and disappearing blocks with a bomb platform drop before the boss. The checkpoints are before the spike ball and the boss gate. If you die anywhere between that, then you start at the spikes again. Even at the end if you fall, Shanghai can't get you on the safe spot. You have to fall on a disappearing platform, and you don't have control of when you're dropped. That's not even taking into account everything in between these portions, which are pits and enemies placed in a way to knock you into them. This was with all the extra items available. Imagine it with none of them. Well, it's done, but it's not over yet. The boss is Yakogoro Eren, a moon doctor, who shoots arrows and throws vials all over the place. Her weakness is imperishable shooting, but she's hard to hit with it. Still better than doing it without though. 6 shots and the doctor is out. Nothing could be worse than that last stage, but the next one certainly tries its best. This one is more about spikes and pits, with wind mechanics brought back. The spike placements are a bit sporadic, and you're unlikely to hit most of what you'll see, but you still have to deal with sliding under some. Lance fairies with shields are all over here, but charged persuasion needles make it less painful. Worst part of it all is the collapsing platform segment at the end. I've never done it properly, and have been bailed out by Shanghai so many times. Honestly, this whole stage feels like it was designed to waste your Shanghai saves. And with the boss being what it is, I don't think I'm wrong. Speaking of the boss, it's Tay in a dragon mech. A Tagan, if you will. You start on a bomb platform that you need to get off of right away. All she does is shoot fireballs, but it only takes 1 knockdown to lose, unless you have Shanghai. Her weakness is Spear the Gungnir, but you have to hit her in the chest. It takes 7 hits to slay the Tagan. The final stage is the Mega Man staple. You refight the main 8 bosses again. There isn't anything different about them, but I can at least show how the Yomu fight goes with her weakness. Spear the Gungnir causes her to flinch hard, but she springs an attack on you right away before the invincibility runs out. 5 hits is all it takes to beat her though. Defeating all the bosses again opens up the final transporter that will take you to the final boss. Kaguya is in a flying wagon tank thing. It shoots fireballs and pellets directly at you. Next phase, the cannon breaks, and she shoots a loopy shot, or some pellets, and fires the wagon wheel like a boomerang. Precise sliding is needed to dodge this. Think you're done? Nope, now you get the Kaguya capsule. She teleports wherever she wants and fires 4 orbs that chase you, while forming a ring around herself that shoots as well. Her weakness is nuclear excursion, but good luck having enough energy to use that here. I pretty much just relied on the base shot for the whole fight, and used icicle fall when she was too high. Still not sure how her shot works, but with blue potions and good luck, you too can take down the last challenge. Kaguya will go down and will talk to Reimu about something, then run away, leaving the mansion to blow up. Congratulations, you've finished the game. Before I wrap up though, clearing the game unlocks some additional modes and options. The first is extra mode, which I guess is hard mode. There's more enemies, and the bosses have a little extra to their abilities. In case you're wondering, yes, I did play through the whole game again on extra, to see if it did anything. And spoiler alert, nothing happened. I regret my decision, but I had to be absolutely sure I wasn't missing anything. Well, I say that, but the other mode you get is 1 HP mode, where you play through the entire game with 1 HP. I beat the prologue stage and made 0 effort to go any further. If you want to try it, be my guest, but I will never play it again. Rock Maiden is an interesting game. The controls are solid, very much like the games it's inspired by. I love the visuals, the sprite work and character portraits are beautiful, and the stage music is excellent. It's Mega Man, and I'm not well versed in the series as a whole, but I don't think saying the game is hard is anything short of expected. As I mentioned with certain segments being Mega Man classics, even with their high difficulty, they are par for the course. That said, there are some aspects with this game's difficulty I take issue with. Firstly is that awful enemy respawn distance. Even just turning around can cause respawns, and being on a 1-tile-wide platform becomes a trial. I also really hate jumping forward and causing an off-screen enemy to snipe you out of the air and into a pit. I already mentioned the rail-bound platforming sections, and I really don't think I have to explain any further as to why those aren't fun. The game has its share of problems for sure, but ultimately I enjoyed it, so I don't regret my decision to play it. This Rock Maiden is only the first of a trilogy, the next 2 I haven't played yet, but I am looking forward to giving them a go. I just hope at the very least that they change up those rail segments. Regarding the Circle, Capricorn, they're still active to this day, and have even started a new Rock Maiden series, known as Rock Maiden FC, as well as some other projects. If you're curious as to what they're up to, I'll leave a link to their homepage in the description. Just know that it's in Japanese, but if I can navigate it with Google Translate, so can you. With all that said, time for the rating. Touhou Rock Maiden, Houraisan Kaguya no Yabou is easily a ranked Churno of a game. While I do wonder what the story is here exactly, it's not something you need to know to play at all. Even knowing all the characters myself, I only managed to guess 1 or 2 weaknesses based on that, but those were the more obvious ones, like Icicle Fall on Aya. Most of the weaknesses don't make much sense anyways. I guarantee the only reason the final boss has the weakness it does is because of how hard it is to use against her. For someone new to Touhou, boss patterns are a nice introduction to the character's abilities. Except Kaguya. She is 100% just copying Dr. Wily. Would you agree or disagree? Let me know what you think. As an attempt at a Mega Man style game goes, Rock Maiden gets enough right that it was definitely worth playing. I'm quite excited to see how it gets expanded upon in its sequels and FC series continuation. If you're into that old-fashioned gut punch level difficulty, then I would recommend it. And if you're brave enough to attempt the 1 HP challenge, I wish you nothing but the best. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you during the next incident.